Okay, so this is our last panel of our mini grant sessions, and this one is basically the citizen science panel, and we've got one person online. As we've done so far, I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves, and please tell us about what you did and how you connected with your audience, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm over at University Park at Penn State in the middle of Pennsylvania. I'm a faculty member in the College of Ed, but I actually don't teach undergrad. I actually do broader impacts with my center for NSF grants. So this was actually a little bit of a different moment for us. But back in 2017, I was a 4th grade elementary science teacher in Charleston. If you're about to put that together, you know that was Totality, and I tried to get my kids involved in my school, and it was a cloudy day. So over a year ago, I said this will be my redemption. So Erie was in Totality. So we basically made 3 Educator professional development one-day workshops, and our mini grant went to the supplies for the teachers. We did differentiate, so the high school teachers received live data sensors, Pocket Lab, the Voyagers, and those are actually able to pick up live data on weather, dew point, I mean a whole bunch of things, which is amazing. But we related it to the PSU ballooning team and the NASA Eclipse ballooning project. And then in elementary, we actually targeted towards misconceptions of science, because that's a lot where a lot of science misconceptions happen, especially because of spatial recognition. So we did a lot about, with content expertise with the Space Grant Consortium there at Penn State, all about science activities to help not cause misconceptions while teaching about the solar eclipse and eclipses. And so then we had a citizen science moment where the teachers received lenses for their cameras and phones, and they actually recorded the eclipse and took photos and then uploaded it to a Google folder where they could show it for future classes to actually talk about misconceptions of weather. And just because where you're located doesn't mean you'll have a clear viewing, obviously knowing that clouds are right here, and then, the air in between, and understanding levels of air and stuff like that. And it was great. We had about 50 teachers, and actually PSU gave an extra 10 Pocket Labs because we had additional teachers sign up and we didn't want to say no to them. And beyond that, we know those teachers went on to teach their kids, and it was great because in Erie, I saw the eclipse. So my redemption was made. Yay!
Hi, I'm Akilah Alleyne from the California Academy of Sciences. I'm with Science Action Club. Science Action Club is an out-of-school time program that is geared towards middle schoolers grades 5 to 8. And we have curriculums that kind of just help young people kind of build their STEM identity and let them understand and know that even though scientists may not look like them, based on like the traditional stereotypical way that the media portrays scientists, that young people, regardless of their socioeconomic status or their background, have accessibility to STEM. And so what was great about partnering with the AAS grant is that part of our mission with SAC, or Science Action Club, is to scale up. And so right now we're currently in 43 states, and we just entered into Puerto Rico. And so, yeah, it's just more of that accessibility to natural and environmental science. And so that's why we partnered, or we paired our bug safari kit, because I guess you could, we also have like CloudQuest. And so for some partners, they wanted to know, well, why not clouds? Like that's Global Observer, that's NASA. Like if we're doing the eclipse, why not clouds? But we wanted to kind of have that observational skills piece. And so that's where our bug safari kit comes in. Because as I explained in my 1-minute spiel, is that it really, with the iNaturalist Citizen Science app, it really hones in on those young people's observational skills. What are you looking at? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What is like? There's just so many changes that happens in the environment based on arthropods or just everyday experiences. And so having those young people kind of get like hone in on those skills and be able to apply it to the eclipse was our goal. And so we partnered and we reached out and did like a lot of cold emails and cold calls to national after school alliances. I'm blanking, but like a lot of states have their own educational or out of school time alliance, and so we reached out to them as well. We reached out to state libraries. They've been really wonderful partners throughout this. And so we just try to make sure that anyone that has any space with young people in the out of school time field, in an out of like extended learning day, that they receive this curriculum and that they kind of just kind of understood the tools that it would take to kind of learn more, not only about the environment around them, but also how to observe the eclipse safely. And we also were able to distribute eclipse glasses. And at the end, we also told them how they can either recycle them safely or how they can reuse them. And so it was just like a nice partnership that we did in this spring, and very grateful to have this experience.
I am Eric Sullenberger. I am the junior high and high school physical sciences teacher at Russia Local School, a real small rural school in Shelby County, Ohio. I'm half the science department there, but in 2017, I went to Missouri to go watch the eclipse, and I started trying to get everyone prepared back then. I am not sure my administrator really understood what was going on, and for a long while, we were the only school in the county that was still in session. And I began to be able to convince him, and he and the village council together came together and bought enough eclipse glasses, not only for the students and staff, but really for the whole small rural community, because we are so tiny. And I was actually fortunate enough through Ohio STEM Learning Network and Battelle to have gotten another grant like this, and we bought a few telescopes, something that I've tried for years through grants to be able to do and had never successfully done. And just being in the path of totality was the, I think, the motivator that other organizations needed to finally agree with my vision. And so we had that, but I also have been very passionate about citizen science. In 2017, I collected temperature and light data and all sorts of other things with sensors from Veneer Science and Technologies. And the president of that company, he had never written a professional paper before, but put out a call for eclipse data to be shared with him after that eclipse. And I cannot tell you how many science education journal articles I have seen that use his sensors, and he had in 40 years never written a professional paper. He quoted me in the paper. He used my data more than his own data, which I was very proud of. And I told him I wish I'd taken a microphone. I just did not realize how loud the crowd would be. And so I wish I had done that. And so one of the goals here was to do more citizen science, to get some more sensors, to get my students trained on using the sensors, to train them as well on other citizen science opportunities to encourage the public to join in on. Most of the public that we did train ended up going in with Globe and iNaturalist. A few did SunSketcher. I participated in a couple others myself, or just with me and my students. And we tried to train the public on those and do some public outreach around it. I'm glad that our main goal was to do stuff beforehand, because I never foresaw that what would keep me from viewing the eclipse with my students. I had all sorts of other things I thought could get in the way, especially the weather. I instead was running a 101, 102 degree fever that day and barely stepped outside of my own house to watch it. I did get to watch it and enjoy it, and I have told everyone over and over and over again how overjoyed I am that the weather was great, because they now understand why I have been absolutely crazy since 2017. And before I pass the mic on, hello to my family that I know is watching online.
Oh goodness, hello, my name is Olivia Young. I'm a fourth year PhD student at Rochester Institute of Technology, and I am, I guess, the ringleader of the student-led project to commission a radio telescope in the path of totality. The telescope that we built is called D-Light, which stands for Deployable Low Band Ionospheric Transient Experiment. So we observe in the low frequency radio waves, so 30 to 45 megahertz, which is below what you'd get in your car radio. So 88.1 FM is 88.1 megahertz. So really, really low frequency radio light. The great thing about radio light is it doesn't matter if it's cloudy out or not, you're still gonna see the eclipse. We did see the eclipse there, I cried, it was beautiful. So we built our telescope in Montville, Ohio, in Observatory Park, which is a silver tier dark sky park. It's the only one on the eastern seaboard, at least that high up. And it was a fantastic experiment. About 15 undergraduate students from Hillsdale College helped as well. And so kind of the outreach component of this telescope was three-pronged. One of them was the students whom it impacted, being able to build this telescope, including myself. There was also the people who came to Observatory Park during the day of the eclipse that we were able to talk to about our experiment. And then we also had an online viewer that reached about 900 people across the world in radio light. And then also, to a certain extent, the scientific community at large. So we'll start with the student element of this. In physics curriculum, you very rarely get to do really hands-on things. You do not really get to build a telescope. You might be lucky enough to have an observing class where you might use an optical telescope, but building something really drives home a lot of these really, really important concepts that we want our students to be able to know when they're going into the workforce or into graduate school. And so these students being able to build this telescope was very informative and impactful for them. A lot of them were like, this is the first time that I've really understood a lot of the science that we're talking about. For myself, I said I'm a fourth year PhD student. I've been in this for what feels like a long time for me, but this was the first time I truly felt like an astronomer, going out there in the field and building something and then being able to see data coming from something I built is so incredibly impactful and makes you feel so proud and so accomplished, and like you're able to do a lot of incredible things. So the student element was a really big part of this project, which we're very excited for. The second element that I mentioned was kind of the broader outreach. So I'm going to say about 200 people ended up coming to Observatory Park that day, even though we A, shut it down, and B, Montville, Ohio was a very rural area. So there were a lot of people there to observe the eclipse. I had a bunch of flyers out, and so I was talking to people all day. I had to ask some folks not to fly drones over our telescope, but they were absolutely incredible. They immediately brought everything down, and they're like, oh, we'll fly somewhere else. We don't want to interrupt the science, and it really led to some really awesome conversations about, well, okay, why don't you want to fly a drone over a radio telescope? I also built an online viewer that was delayed by about 4 minutes in order for us to be able to process our data, so close to real-time observations of the eclipse in radio light, and you could access that. It's on my GitHub through a QR code, so I had a bunch of QR codes posted all around the park, and so you were able to watch the eclipse in glorious radio light and cry your eyes out, and then go and watch it in radio light. I switched those optical light, cry your eyes out, and then watch it in radio light on the website, which is still operational as well. And then I mentioned this kind of the scientific community at large. We're entering this really interesting time in radio astronomy where our telescopes are getting bigger and bigger and more expensive, and it's getting harder for students to get involved in building these things. The D in D-Light is deployable, so a big part of this project was actually proving that this telescope that was developed by the Naval Research Lab truly is deployable, that someone like a student could go out and build this thing in a field somewhere, and it can take interesting data that we're actually going to be able to observe our sun or our ionosphere with it. And that this was a proof of concept that was successful. We got some really interesting ionospheric data and with the ionospheric response to the eclipse. And then we also were able to observe the sun as well. D-Light Ohio is going to be up and running for many years in the future. I'm actually due in about a month to go up and trench in our 2.5 kilometers worth of coaxial cable that y'all paid for. So my summer is going to be very busy with that. But yeah, so that was kind of an overview of what we did.
If you hang on for the microphone for a second. We have one more person who is online. So Connie, if you can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Marvelous. Connie Atkisson here, and I am a science educator with Detroit Public Schools. I teach multiple grade levels, but I work mostly with an entity called DAPSEP, which stands for Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program, and it allows me the autonomy of also working with kids after school and bringing them into more hands-on where you can't really get into it in a classroom in a very large setting when you're seeing 250 kids a week. This project that we did, Team Up for Totality, was actually born out of a dream back in 2017 when I gathered up my family and said, we're going to go see the solar eclipse down in near Nashville, Tennessee. We were in Cedars of Lebanon State Park, and never have I seen anything like that. And it made such an impact. And the funniest thing was that particular eclipse was talked about in our 5th grade science books. So I was able to take what we did, and I recorded some of it and took that information back and shared it with the kids, going, the next time this is coming, it's in Ohio. Wherever you are, I will find you. We're going. And I went in to see my principal, and I said, now you know me. They called me the queen of field trips. This is what we're doing. And we began to build that idea from that time. A lot of things changed, people moved, principal left, but it didn't matter because what we did was we began to build the idea of let's bring students. We went through 3 different school districts. The criteria was at some point or another, they had worked with me in this program and were still working with me in one point or another so that we could create a program. What we did was we went to a family farm from a family friend that I've known for years, has a 1,500-acre farm that just happened to be right in the middle of Totality. And it's a horse farm now. It's a big area, open skies, dark. I mean, it's just no street lights, it's the country. Hard for inner city kids to figure this out. So we developed the whole program with the idea that whoever came brought somebody from their family so that the family was involved, could see what these kids have been doing, learning how to gather data. It wasn't just let's go do all the odd problems in the back of the textbook and answer the questions in the science chapters, and that's it. We actually went out and collected data. We worked with NASA Globe. We worked with, again, with DAPSEP, but we also collected data that we could turn in and use. We also built a presentation where we could invite the public in, and we had set up stations. These stations were activities. Some of them were learning activities. Some of them they built like the pinhole cameras. Found one for the little kids to do that were the Mars rover, but it built like an overlay around the Eclipse glasses so that the kids, the little ones, could not possibly like capture the sun out of the corner of their eye. It just made a whole big protective case around it. We also had viewing stations. We had a small telescope. We had 2 sun spotters. And we also had the most exciting one was the solar binoculars that we had up there. And I have some amazing shots where we were actually able to, the kids had the eclipse on their hand, or they put it on a piece of paper where they could reflect it as well as seeing it. So we've got some shots of that. But the thing that was so unique was we had people from all over, and from the hotel, people came up, and we saw, we even had a family from Denmark that came and shared the whole thing. They came specifically to the States to see if they could find a place in Totality that they could show their family and experience what they wouldn't be able to see at home. So we had everything from making models of the solar eclipse, looking at how it happened. We also did punch points where they could shine the eclipse through a model of the shape of Ohio onto paper, the sun paper that exposes and turns colors. We tried to do a little bit of everything. They even had make your own solar t-shirts. We made eclipse cookies. Those were quite popular. Yes, they were. If you could make it, take it home and eat it, we were the best ones there. But then when it actually came, we had people doing land cover data. We had air temperatures. We had one student who was doing UV rays, and her results blew everybody out of the water because they totally expected that wouldn't be anything, sun's gone, no UV rays, no nothing. And they got quite a surprise after finding that they actually had more than they did when the sun was present. They didn't take into effect, I guess, the corona, but that's how they learned. We had all of that data. We had cloud data. We were able to turn in a pile of it to NASA, which made them happy because we were the only ones, I guess, in the area along that section of Totality, which was cool because we got it everywhere. It was a lot of work. Reached about, we figure about 100 people all together. And I would do it again, but I would definitely not be able to have done it without this grant. That's for sure. The grant helped us get there because we were looking at how many vans could we pile people in, because, mostly inner city kids don't actually have families who have vehicles that drive anywhere really very far, if they have one at all. So we were able to charter bus, drag all our equipment, put the tables in there because we had to take everything with us. And we were well received. Everybody was thrilled. And it was so unique because the farmer had, he couldn't believe it went right over his house and right over his property. And he would say during the whole time, look, it's changing colors. Look, Connie, look, it's got, yes, John, that's the corona, remember? We would go through all of those things, but it meant a lot. And the responses from those who came were they were thrilled, and it made it worth it at all. It made it worth all the paperwork, all the times of trying to get everything together. Where can we feed all these kids in the middle of nowhere? All those things that come up that you think you've covered all the bases and you find there's a few more out there.
Thanks, Connie. And just so this was the citizen science panel. Just in case people don't know, there is another session 2 rooms down that way, room J, in 30 minutes. That will be a citizen science. So it'll be people reporting on citizen science work. So I invite you all to come there, and you should all, harass them in person if you have more questions.